Oh.
Hi, I'm Zane Hetherington. Toxic algae is polluting our waterways, killing our pets, and making our families sick. Our estuary is threatened by nutrient-rich discharges from Lake Okeechobee. Florida's hydrology has been altered over the last century. Everglades restoration provides the solution to our problem. And what are some solutions to the discharges?
It's a great question, Zane, and the solutions are very expensive. They take a long time, and there's lots of them, but more or less, the solutions involve creating storage capacity. The problem that we have in Florida is it's meant to be really, really wet. And when people live here and they try to farm here or build houses here, streets, things like that, you can't have all that water in those spots. And so the Corps of Engineers with the federal government and the state a long time ago helped to drain a lot of that water away and build in a system that helps to make the water inhabitable, or make the land inhabitable. So the solutions really involve trying to reverse that process in a way that we can still live here and function and have an economy and healthy lifestyles, but that the water is not so negatively impacted. So the system that helps get rid of that water also helps contribute a lot of pollutants to the water. And it concentrates all that water into small spaces, and so water that normally would have slowly moved from the Kissimmee River, the southern Orlando area, over the period of 6 months to a year down to Florida Bay. Now it just shoots straight out to the St. Lucie River and the Caloosahatchee River. So it doesn't get any natural treatment, doesn't have an opportunity to settle, doesn't have an opportunity for evaporation to play a role in it. It just shoots it right to us, and with all the pollutants that it picks up along the way from urban and rural uses of the land. So the solutions are create storage reservoirs that help hold that water and release it slowly during times of the year where you need the water, and stormwater treatment areas or flow equalization basins, other big land areas where you put a little bit of water in there, and then aquatic vegetation, plants that grow up from in the water and around the water, help take up those nutrients and settle out the sediments and make the water clean before it gets released to the other water bodies. And then there's lots of other projects that are helping to restore flows back to where they originally went to, through the Central Everglades down into Everglades National Park and Florida Bay, where they desperately need that fresh water to maintain the right vegetation ecotype and to keep salinities from getting too high in other parts of Florida.
Yeah, thank you. Hi, I'm Zane Hetherington, and I'm here about toxic algae and how it's harming our families and killing our pets. John, so what are you doing to stop discharges from the Lake Okeechobee and to improve water quality?
Thank you, Zane. So we're doing several things at Martin County. We categorize them as in these three categories: either advocating, communicating, or educating. Then we also do a lot locally with projects where we manage our own stormwater to make sure that it's as clean as we expect others to provide for water that comes to us. In the advocating part, we work with state and federal government extensively to advocate for policies and for funding that will help to solve these problems. And on the education front, we try to make sure that our citizens are fully informed and understand the issues so that they can help us with advocating and help with their own water management in their yards and driveways, and to help keep the water clean. And we do lots of communication as well to make sure that people know what the county's doing and what's important for us to protect the water.
Okay, and what is happening by the Lake Okeechobee giving off discharges?
So the biggest problem is that the St. Lucie River and estuary is tidally influenced. That means the water that comes, the ocean water that's has salt in it, it interacts back and forth on a daily basis with tide with the estuary. So the natural systems that depend on that water, they depend on a certain amount of salinity or salt water to be healthy. And when LACO discharges to the St. Lucie River, it drives those saltwater levels down so low that the systems that depend on that, the organisms, the oyster beds and the seagrasses, that they can't survive. So that's one of the biggest problems. Another problem with those discharges is Lake Okeechobee has very high concentrations of phosphorus and nitrogen, and those nutrients help fuel things like blue-green algae blooms and other harmful algal blooms that are not good for people. They're not good for pets. They're certainly not good for the water and the things that survive in the water.
Okay, thank you.